Hi, I'm Dion Rich, godfather of gate crashing. I've been backstage at the Oscars, Emmys, Grammys, Super Bowl, the Summer Olympics, and the Playboy Mansion. I will tell you how you'd get an 18 or 19-year-old backstage exactly how I would do it. You should dress the part, look the part, play the part. You walk in as though you're supposed to be there. Then he'll stop you. He'll say, "Excuse me, sir, I have to get the keys to the car from your mother, your father, your sister." Just look them straight in the eyes. I'll be right back. If you want to get a hold of your person, you call them on your cell phone. Okay, another thing, you're much, much better off going in with a crowd. You slip right on in, and then you eat immediately. It feels a lot better to get thrown out on a full stomach than an empty stomach. Hold on. Hello. Appreciate the call. Thank you. One of my best suggestions, you could have an accomplice go up to whoever is on the door and say, "Sir, my cousin would like to have the same job," just as you talk to him facing this direction as your gal would go in this way. Once you get in, you get backstage and you try to get a picture with some of the stars. I have well over 500 pictures. Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan. Snoop Dogg was one of my favorites. Bruce and Caitlyn Jenner.
All right, cutting.
Cut it. This is a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
100 years ago, America entered a decade known as the Roaring Twenties, a time of flappers and gangsters, prohibition, and prosperity. The Dow Jones average increased sixfold until the end of October 1929 when the market crashed. Less than a month later, on November 20th, 1929, Dion D. Rich was born in Compton, California. The Great Depression and poverty would leave an indelible mark on the young child. In simple terms, his family didn't have squat. So Dion learned the value of barter at a young age while swapping peanut butter and jelly for minced ham sandwiches at school. He told people he went to school in a tent. It was a better story when he didn't tell them an earthquake made his school unusable. The Rich family moved to the Spring Valley area of San Diego in the early 1940s. Dion went out for sports at Grossmont High School, but was never good enough to be a starter. During games, he always sat near the coach in hopes he would put him in. Although Dion rode the pine, he developed a lifelong love for sports and beautiful girls. It was during his high school years that he and his friends began crashing movie theaters in downtown San Diego and midget auto races at Balboa Stadium. Dion was drafted into the Army during the Korean War. He admitted it was perfect for a gold brick like me. Somehow he became a military policeman. While en route to Japan aboard the USS General William M. Black, his whereabouts were unknown until the last 2 days of the 3-week voyage. In Korea, he quickly entered the loan shark and black market business, trading cigarettes. He was transferred from guarding captured North Korean soldiers to becoming a cook. After 4.5 months in Korea, he had an emergency transfer to Fort Rosecrans on Point Loma so he could care for his ailing mother. At Rosecrans, Dion served as the mail clerk for a captain, a warrant officer, and 5 enlisted personnel, including himself. Without much mail to handle, he got an early out from the Army to fish tuna. For the remainder of the 1950s, he and his brother Dan fished together, and Dion became a bartender when they weren't out to sea. In 1962, Dion established Dion's Bar of Music on El Cajon Boulevard. It began as a classy nightclub with top entertainment. The bar gained national attention when Dion crashed the 1964 Innsbruck, Austria Winter Olympics and held a sign at the bottom of the ski jump that read, "Dion's Bar of Music, San Diego." When the TV camera zoomed in on the jumpers at the end of their run, there was Dion holding his sign. The 60s were a decade of change, and Dion and his business adapted with the times. He said, "Go-Go changed the ambiance of my bar, and it put a lot of money in my pocket." NFL players and coaches were regulars at the bar, and Dion became a regular along the sidelines at Charger games in Balboa Stadium. He saved his money from the bar business and became a ticket broker. As a broker, he became well known for his ability to get the ungettable ticket, and he made many connections. It's also at this time gate crashing went from a hobby to a full-time avocation. He loved the challenge and publicity he received. The first AFL-NFL World Championship game was played on January 15, 1967 at the Los Angeles Coliseum. The Green Bay Packers defeated the Kansas City Chiefs 35-10. That game would later be known as Super Bowl I. Dion was there. He strolled into the Coliseum with Fred Arbanas and other Kansas City players. Security assumed he was part of the team. In the locker room, he borrowed a Chiefs jacket from a coach and watched the game from their sideline. Afterwards, the Kansas City locker room was a morgue. Dion removed the red jacket, stuffed it into his back pocket, and walked into the victorious Packers celebration as Commissioner Pete Rozelle was presenting the championship trophy to the great Vince Lombardi. When Dion climbed up on the podium for a closer look, it became the first step of his legendary Super Bowl journey. Quoting from In Like Flynn by Sports Illustrated columnist Rick Reilley about Dion crashing Super Bowl 36 in New Orleans right after 9/11, quote, "Coming to the Big Easy, 72-year-old Dion Rich had sneaked, weaseled, conned, bluffed, tricked, and bamboozled his way into 32 straight Super Bowls, the record for a man refusing to touch his wallet." Reilly would later go on to say in his ESPN feature, he didn't just sneak in, he became part of the Super Bowl.
Dion has dodged security's eye at more than 30 Super Bowls. But he doesn't just sneak in. He became part of Super Bowls. He helped present trophies, carried off coaches. He crashed history. I know. I watched him do it myself once at Super Bowl 36. After I wrote that column about Dion sneaking into the Super Bowl, the next event was the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. So they put Dion's picture on every metal detector going into every event. And I mean, that's when you know you've made it. When you can't, when you're the most wanted guy on every metal detector at the Olympics. And eventually the Olympics guy said, "Here you go. Here's a pass for every event for the 2.5 weeks." So Dion wins.
Dion was either on TV or had his picture with 7 Super Bowl coaches, including Vince Lombardi, Don Shula, Chuck Noll, John Madden, Tom Landry, Tom Flores, and Dick Vermeil. Dion's greatest picture was that of him and Dallas defensive tackle Larry Cole carrying winning Hall of Fame coach Tom Landry off the field after the Cowboys won Super Bowl XII. ESPN rated that picture at number 83 on their list of 100 greatest Super Bowl moments.
Super Bowl XII, my ultimate goal was to get a picture with Tom Landry. I got permission from Red Miller, the coach with Denver, to get on the bus. I had my USA Today like this, because you never know who might come by and spot me. The bus pulled right up the field. You have to walk in with a crowd. You walk in by yourself, the security officer is going to come up and ask you for your credential. I was right there where they're making the plays. My heart's going about like this. I started easing my way over into the position to get Landry on my shoulder. Right at the time that that clock hits 0, I'm like this close to him. Red Miller comes across to congratulate Landry, and he sees me right there with Landry on my shoulder. That picture is in the NFL Hall of Fame. I had no idea that would ever happen to none whatsoever.
After 9/11, passengers had to produce identification for the airlines. NFL security had access to the travel lists. More than once, local police met Dion's plane upon arrival in the host city. For the remainder of his life, he kept buying Super Bowl tickets, although he continued to try to crash it. He'd planned to attend Super Bowl 57 earlier this month in Arizona. Although Dion wasn't able to make it to the Super Bowl this year, a contingent of his friends carried on the tradition in his memory by attending the game and all the parties he frequented, like Taste of NFL, Lee Steinberg, and Maxim. Dion had fun crashing the Academy Awards and other Tinseltown galas, too. Movie publicist Sid Kovalevsky described him as more Hollywood than Hollywood. In 1999, 2 undercover L.A. cops in tuxedos escorted Dion away from a seat behind Jack Nicholson and Steven Spielberg at the Oscars. Hilarious correspondence from Rick Robertson, the executive administrator of the Academy Awards, began by saying, "As we reconstruct the evidence, it looks like you had quite a night last March 21st. It convinced Dion to stay away from the red carpet, but he continued to crash the Governor's Ball and other post-Oscars celebrations where he had innumerable, a word Dion often used, innumerable photos taken with movie stars and celebrities. He also crashed several bashes at Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion in Holmby Hills near Beverly Hills. He was particularly proud to have worn Hef's own personalized robe. Dion considered one of his greatest crashes to be the winner's circle of the 1996 Kentucky Derby with owner William T. Young, his horse Grindstone, and jockey Jerry Bailey. The next day, his picture was on the first page of the Louisville Courier-Journal with Bailey. He crashed several Olympics, World Series, All-Star Games, the America's Cup, heavyweight boxing championships, and numerous other events. Dion even crashed a 99th birthday party aboard the USS Midway for John Finn, the oldest living Medal of Honor recipient. At that event, Dion was mistaken for a retired Army general. In later years, Dion loved to host lunches for his friends at San Diego's finest restaurants. He always paid the tab through barter. There was only one rule: no alcohol. He had to pay cash for that. Nobody hated to spend money more than Dion.
Dion didn't have trade for alcohol. The trade it would always be eat as much as you want. If you want to drink, you're on your own.
Dion had this idea that you didn't drink liquids with your meal, but you had to drink wine before the meal. And so whenever we'd go anywhere, he had a little bottle of, I think it was like some energy drink, and it was full of wine. And he'd do this, and sometimes he'd do it in the restaurant. Mariana and your sister, you got kicked out of Mr. A's on Valentine's Day, I think, because Dion poured it in the glass in the restaurant.
Dion invited me to lunch at Mr. A's on Valentine's Day. Now, as we all know, Dion loved to carry wine on a Boost bottle. He always had 2-buck Chuck White Zinfandel from Trader Joe's in this Boost bottle. So we get to Mr. A's, the place is packed, it's Valentine's Day lunch. We sit down, and then the waiter asks me what I would like to drink, and I said I want a glass of rosé. And so he goes to get it, and while he's gone, Dion pulls out his Boost bottle and pours it on the wine glass at Mr. A's. So when the waiter came back with my wine, he looked so confused as to where that wine bottle had come from. He was holding it, asking me, where did that come from? Did I already bring it out to you? Very quickly, he realized this was wine that we had brought over. And so he just took the other wine away from me and said, I am going to hold these bottles and I am not going to charge you for it, but I need to ask you to leave now.
Though many knew of his escapades, most people are unaware of Dion's generous philanthropy. He was a proud member of San Diego Nice Guys. He took disabled kids to ball games and whale watching. Along with Randy Jones, he took military families fishing. He volunteered for Star Pal and helped feed the homeless on the holidays. San Diego sports columnist Nick Canepa wrote that Dion Rich was one of the great characters, unlike any individual who has roamed the world, living 92 years of a crazy existence that ended October 28th, 2 weeks after he was diagnosed with cancer. He was a good, loyal friend. He was a friend to a whole lot of people. Dion Rich double dog dared to be great. Rest in peace.
Hi, my name is Carmen Delgadillo. I'm with the Friends of Scott Foundation. We are friends to children with cancer. The foundation was started in memory of my son, Scott. For those of you that are familiar with Scott's story, he was a huge Notre Dame fan. So when Notre Dame came to San Diego and they were going to play Navy, I had to be there. We bought seats. We were at the stadium, and Gloria insisted on sitting at the very front. right on the line. I didn't feel comfortable. I said, let's go sit in our seats. We walked to our seats, and somebody actually was sitting in our seats. I said, you know what? Go ahead and sit there. We'll sit below you. If somebody comes, we'll talk about it. We'll move around. But then Mr. Dion pulls out some tickets and said, how about you take my tickets? They're really nice seats. And we walked to where the seats were, and it was right where we were sitting a few minutes ago. And throughout the game, we kept running into Dion and Mariana, and I told him about Scott. I invited him to my next event for kids with cancer. I said, come to my next event, I'd like you to be my guest. And that night, we had an honorary speaker named Aldo Aguilar, who had been battling cancer, a brain tumor, for most of his life. And that night, this young man spoke of hope and inspiration. And he inspired Dion so much that night they met that he made Aldo his honorary guest at his 90th birthday party that was well attended. It made Aldo feel extra special, his family, and I know that Dion felt very special. They became friends. A friendship grew between Aldo and Dion. Aldo's battle was getting even tougher. Dion came through again. Aldo's last outing was amazing. It was beautiful for Aldo and for his family because of Dion, who orchestrated a wonderful evening along with Randy Jones, San Diego Padres. Aldo and his family were able to attend a game. They had these great seats behind home plate. They met the Padres. He got to go to the field. It was a night to forget about cancer and have a memory that can carry and think about Aldo, a night that made him happy and his family happy. And this is something that I'm going to cherish too, and something that Dion did. He created happiness and love and a legacy for himself and for these kids and for many more children that are to come.
Dion, I'm about to go get you now. I'm leaving the house.
What exit are you on?
I just left, Dion. I'm leaving.
Where?
Okay,
What exit? What?
Talk to you later.
What?
Bye. I'll see you soon.
What exit are you on?
Then 30 seconds later, ring.
What exit are you on now?
I'm on the 5 North by the 54. Okay?
Yes,
See
but
you
what
soon.
exit? So how many minutes? How many minutes?
I was instructed by Dion
Uh-oh.
to continue to crash and keep his legacy. You know, he taught me to crash. He taught me to scalp tickets, which I've done for him. And he told me about the memorabilia. You know, I guess I did miss the memo because we didn't go to the memorabilia right away. So, but
That was one of the first things we had to do.
with him, yes, let's go to the store. I need to get $100.
But see, here's the thing. I couldn't understand why it was so important to do it at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? Later on, I found out why. They sell out.
Yeah.
They sell out immediately.
What would Dion used to say? Rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake.
We waited till the first quarter to go to the store, and it was slim pickings. There was nothing. I walked out with this hat, and that's it. There was nothing.
Rookie mistakes.
Rookie mistake.
Do I remember when Dion called me without his hearing aids? Every time he called me, he wasn't wearing his hearing aids. I'd say, hello, and he'd say, hi, Bill. I'd say, Dion, are you wearing your hearing aids? And what? Are you wearing your hearing aids? No. I said, well, then why the hell are you calling me? Put your hearing aids in, call me back. Every time he called, he was never wearing them. Anybody that ever had conversation with Dion knows that to be true.
The first time he gave me his business card, Dion created credentials for himself. So I bet it's Dion Rich, and I look behind his name and it's got KOB and FTS. And so I didn't know exactly what those meant. And I'm sure there's many in this room that probably know what those credentials mean, but for the uninitiated, the KOB was King of Barter, because I think Dion considered himself to have 2 jobs at once. The King of Barter was one of them. The other was for fucking ticket scalper. So Dion was very proud of the fact that in an era when ticket scalping wasn't called, you know, the secondary market, it wasn't ticket brokering, Dion kind of wore that credential like a red badge of courage, the fact that, you know, it wasn't necessarily, you know, mainstream, and I think he liked to kind of swim in those waters.
He told me a story that one time he went to the doctor and there were like little kids playing and he was talking to them, and then at some point he asked the kids, how old do you think I am? Because the kids were saying, well, I'm 8 or I'm 10 or whatever. And the kids told him, well, I don't know how old you are, but sure act like you're 11. And that is very true. And the man was 90. You know, he was just a fun person.
He's walking in he's got that little walker, that senior citizen walker, right? And I've always stayed like maybe 3 or 4 feet behind him, just watching, make sure he doesn't fall and this and that. So we're coming up to this red carpet area, and it was on a raised pedestal, right? With all the things in the background and everything. And all these cameras out here, everybody's taking pictures, and there's these 2 beauty queens from Russia holding a football. He gets up on the stage with his walker, and I've got it on a picture. I've got 4 pictures, every picture, right? He gets up on the stage with the walker. After about the 2nd picture, he puts a walker to the side, walks up to the girls, takes the football away from them, gets right between them, and all this time the cameras are going click, 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 right? There's got to be at least 15 cameras, right? And the girls are taking it in stride. They didn't give him that, you know, surprised look. They were just smiling like crazy. And I'm on the other side by then, and I'm watching it, make sure he doesn't fall. So I figured, okay, well, what the hell? I get up on stage, and the cameras are going, and I'm on the far end over there. And then I said, okay, let's go. And I give him the walker, and we take off.
Dion was a lot of fun, and he was doing things that people wish they could have done. Dion Rich had brass balls and a heart of gold.
Dion, and the kook that he was, and Lord knows when it came to his style, Dion definitely had style, but however, it was his own style. The thing that I'm sure lots of us have seen was his favorite green I don't know if you can consider it a leisure suit, but his outfit that he always wore on St. Patrick's Day.
He paid attention. He made you feel like you were the most important person when you're in front of him. That was his thing. It's how he's wired. So it was very easy to kind of hear his heart and his concern because he really cared. So that's kind of a teddy bear thing with, varying hairstyles over the years and all the other things that made him Dion. But what stuck with me in just the last couple of years is how when he would admit he was having a hard time hearing, and he was having a harder time sometimes seeing, but there were, because you get past 90, stuff starts to happen. Even when it was harder for him to hear, and he'd call or you'd be in front of him or something, he still gave that attention, and he was so grateful. I think the heart is a big heart because he was grateful for, even on the worst days, even when he was struggling with that kind of thing, it was classic Dion. And you wanted to say, I know you're not feeling great right now, but let's go out and you want to bust into a joint? I mean, we won't really go to jail, but if you do, I'll come and visit.
What a kind man he was. He fit in, like, if you asked Dion what time it was, he'd give you 10 minutes on where all the watches he'd owned. So he never stopped talking, but he really did take time for people. He was so generous. He didn't have kids of his own. So he just would take kids on fishing trips, whole boatloads of them, or take boatloads of kids to the zoo or a ballpark. So he was a real, he was kind of Mother Teresa with a wild hairdo.
It's been 22 years since I lost my son. And periodically, I see someone or something, or I do something in his honor, and I know he's here. That night at the Notre Dame game, I knew Scott brought me to Dion, and we got to have the best night ever. And that's going to be something I'll be grateful to Dion forever. Those amazing seats, and Gloria that was trying to crash those seats earlier.
The consummate father of fun, Dion was always planning the next party. Dion even planned today's party himself 7 years ago after his 85th birthday party. Although he gave some creative freedom, everything you see here today was planned in accordance with his vision. A big party where all of his friends could gather to celebrate. No eulogies, he instructed. I want this to be a fun event. Those who saw him near the end were asked, "You'll be coming to my party, right?" Dion wanted his headstone to read, "Cause of death, living." And live he did. He's here with us in spirit today. On behalf of Dion, welcome and thank you for joining him at his Kicking the Bucket party.